Imagine this. You swear brotherhood with a man you barely know out there on the open road. You fall ill and trust him with your funeral money. And by dawn, he's gone. Years pass. Your son grows up in the shadow of that betrayal. Hungry, angry, brilliant. And one night, he sits before a rattling bowl of dice. The river is dark. Lanterns sway. And the hands of heaven begin to move. But before we begin, if you're drawn to stories with mystery, meaning, and the otherworldly, to legends that refuse to die, then welcome to Jared Tells Tales. I share a new story each week from folklore, forgotten history, and strange events that linger at the edge of belief. So tap the like button and subscribe with all notifications on so you never miss what's next. Let's begin. The story begins on a trade road winding between Yutai and Suqian through fields of dust and endless wind. That stretch of country lies between the northern plains of Shandong and the softer waters of Jiangsu, two worlds meeting on the same path. It was the kind of road that smelled of sweat and iron, lined with inns that offered more noise than rest. Now, one of the travelers was Ren Jianzhi, a merchant from Yutai, a place of wheat fields and patient men, known for keeping their word even when it hurt. He was tall, with quiet eyes that seemed to measure everything before he spoke. To him, life was a matter of accounts. Weigh what you give, remember what you owe. The other was Shen Zhuting from Suqian, a city along the Huai River where boats come and go like thoughts. The people there are talkers and deal makers, nimble with words and quicker with drink. Shen had charm in his bones. His smile could turn suspicion to trust before the teapot cooled. The two men met by chance, each heading west towards Shanxi, where the caravan roads promised silver if luck held. They drank together, laughed together, and by the second evening swore brotherhood beneath a clear moon. Over warm wine, they promised loyalty in life and death. Now on the road, a fever took Ren Jianzhi. He felt it coming, the heat rising like storm clouds under his skin. Knowing the end was near, he pressed a bundle of silver into his sworn brother's hands. Over 200 taels, half for burial, half to send back to his wife and son back home. He wrote a final letter, his fingers shaking. Before dawn, he was gone. By midday, Shen Zhuting bought a cheap pine coffin, dug a shallow grave, and disappeared with all the silver. And where a promise should have stood, there was only dust and wind. A year later, a tired messenger reached the Ren household with the news. The widow did not scream. She simply folded to her knees. Her son, Ren Xiu, only 17, swore he would bring his father's bones home himself. They had nothing. His mother pawned her cloak. He sold his scholar's robe. They walked the long roads west. It took months. When they found the grave, the earth was thin, the coffin warped. By the time they returned to Yutai, they were poorer than before. They buried his father again, properly this time. The father's spirit could finally rest. Without that silver, though, living was incredibly difficult. Poverty is not just hunger, it is a slow, grinding shame. The rice seller mixed husks into the grain. The landlord raised the rent. The house groaned in the wind, patched with paper. Every debt pressed inward, and slowly, despair became the norm. At first, Ren Xiu took a single cup of wine to warm his hands, then 2 for courage, then 3 to forget. Gambling came the same way, a way to breathe when life's walls closed too tight. He told himself it was nothing, just a bit of play. But play became routine. Routine became need. Before he realized it, the dice were teaching him how to lose hope, 1 coin at a time. Ren Xiu was clever, too clever. Now, dice are dangerous teachers. They whisper that every loss is a step toward winning. His mother begged him to stop. He promised. He broke that promise again and again, though. He took the local scholar's exam and ranked near the bottom. When he brought home the results, his mother took the paper with both hands and sat down slowly. She didn't shout. She simply looked at him as if she were watching the house crumble stone by stone. All her sacrifices gone. All her belief that her son might lift them from ruin gone. That quiet grief struck him deeper than any blow. He realized then that he wasn't just failing exams, he was failing her. The shame burned hotter than any fever. That night, he threw his dice into the fire and watched them crack. The sound was small, but to him, it was thunder. He swore he'd never gamble again. He studied until dawn, went hungry, rose again before the rooster. He took the next exam and placed high. But reputations are long shadows. No one wanted to hire a gambler. The world remembered his past better than his effort. Now, spring came, and with it, his mother's brother, Uncle Zhang, a man with a weathered face and eyes like river stones. He had little money, but carried quiet wisdom. "Your father was my brother in all but name," he said. "He worked hard, lived honest. You have his spirit. Now earn his peace." Zhang didn't have silver to offer, but he had a path. "Come north with me," he said. "We'll find buyers who don't know your past. We'll trade honest goods. Small steps survive when big dreams fail." They set out, sharing stale bread and long silences. The road gave them dust, cold inns, and hope that refused to die. Weeks later, they reached Linqing, a roaring river town in western Shandong where the Grand Canal met the Daqing River. It was the crossroad of China's trade: salt, silk, grain, and gossip. By day, carts and shouts filled the streets. By night, the city turned golden under lantern light. Wine spilled, songs rose, and dice rolled across tables in smoky rooms where laughter and ruin shared the same cup. The air seemed drunk. Sailors toasted fortune, merchants wagered their next shipment, and the poor gambled away their last meal for a dream of change. In that hum, temptation has its own rhythm, steady, coaxing, familiar. Renxiu heard it. He laughed it off once, twice. The third time, his hands tightened on the railing as the sound of dice carried over the river. He told himself he'd only watch, but the sound pulled him like a tide. Curiosity became an ache. Before he knew it, he was walking toward the nearest gambling boat. His uncle followed quietly. Inside, oil lamps threw yellow light across a circle of faces. The air smelled of wine, sweat, and river mist. The bowl rattled with 3 dice. The first throws were small. Renxiu won 2, lost 3. His money thinned fast. He glanced at his uncle. The old man didn't nod or shake his head. He simply said, "Know why you're here." The next throw, Renxiu lost again. Hunger and fear pressed at his ribs. The boat owner leaned close, smiling. "Luck is a wheel," he said. "One more roll." Another gambler pushed forward a silver bar. Another produced 100 tailpiece. The stakes swelled like the river in flood. Renxiu hesitated, then bet. Lose, lose, lose. The room leaned in, smelling blood. His uncle whispered, "If you quit from fear, it owns you. If you play from fear, it owns you now. Choose your reason." So Renxiu played, not for greed, but for choice. The dice struck the bowl, rolled, and stopped. 3 of a kind, a win. Played again, small bets, steady hands. Win. The owner borrowed more silver from neighboring boats to feed the table. Little red strings tied each silver bar, promises waiting to be broken. The night stretched long. Sweat, shouts, and dice filled the air. His uncle quietly carried half the winnings back to their boat. No one noticed. At dawn, Ren Xiu had broken even and earned enough to stand again. Not rich, just free. When the gamblers left, the owner, still smiling, went to count his fortune. He untied the red strings, lifted the silver bars, and poured them onto the scale. But what fell was not silver. It was ash, soft, gray, silent, the kind burned for the dead. Men who had lent him the money watched in horror. The ash stained to his hands, clung to his sleeves. No trick could explain it. The owner screamed, but the echo sounded hollow. He stormed through the dock door to find the boy. He found Ren Xiu and his uncle packing quietly, their winnings modest, their eyes calm. "Thief!" he shouted. "Repay me what you owe! My silver, it turned to dust." His uncle looked at him evenly and said, "You borrowed from others to gamble, and now you demand repayment from the one who won? Think carefully, who is truly in debt here." Ren Xiu turned. "I am Ren Xiu, son of Ren Jianzhi." The boat froze. The name hit him like a hammer. His lips trembled. I'm Shen Ting." In that instant, everyone understood. The man before them was the same Shen Ting who had stolen Ren Jianzhi's funeral money all those years ago. He had vanished afterward, fled, and with the stolen silver, he had opened this very gambling hall. For years, he believed he was safe, that no one would ever find him, that the past was buried as shallow as the coffin he left behind. But fate, and perhaps the spirits, had guided Ren Xiu straight to him. The scales had finally balanced. The silver stolen from a dying man's hand had returned to his son, and the thief's fortune had turned to dust. Ren Xiu saw the man's terror, not just for what he'd lost, but for what he'd become. Years of stolen wealth had turned to ash in a single night. Heaven had been patient, but not forgetful. Ren Xiu said softly, "The debt is paid. Not forgiveness, not hatred, only balance." Shen Ting sank to his knees, staring at the ash on his hands. No one touched him. The gamblers stepped back as if the curse might cling. Ren Xiu and his uncle didn't celebrate. They bought rice, cloth, and a ledger. They paid debts, saved the rest. They traded quietly, traveled slowly, and prospered in honest work. In time, they bought the title of Jiansheng, a man of respect, and rebuilt the family name. He never gambled again. When asked where the change began, he said, "The night my mother cried without sound." So, was it luck or justice? A son who lost everything to betrayal sits at a table meant to break him, and leaves not rich, but restored. And the thief, he held ash where silver should have been, and learned that heaven keeps its own accounts. If this tale of promise and retribution stayed with you, tell me your favorite moment in the comments below. Every time you're here, you breathe life into these legends, and to all of our members, an extra big thank you for helping keep them alive. For just the cost of a cup of coffee each month, you can unlock myth and meaning, bonus stories, deeper insights, and early access to the tales you love. Click join below to become a member, support the channel, and take your place among those who help these old stories find new voices. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.